If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new songs in the description. Logic is at a very interesting place in his career. This is an artist that I've talked about quite a lot also on the channel, and I've just been listening to in my private life for the past 5 to 6 years, over the past 3 or 4 of which less so, but early in the mid 2010s I was listening to the old mixtapes, to the young Sinatra era, like the young Logic that hip-hop fell in love with or hated, depending on, how you viewed him. But over the past couple of years, especially since he presumably retired back in 2020 and dropped No Pressure, his career took a very interesting path after that. And I want to talk about this here today, and also talk about the unfortunate fall off of artists like Logic that at some point decide to go their own way. But let's break this down and let's get straight into this. So Logic's latest release was obviously Vinyl Days, and I've talked about this album also on this channel leading up to its release quite a lot, going over my expectations, the importance it holds in his career, his last album on Def Jam obviously, and what we knew about the album. And Logic was always someone that did what he wanted. He never much appealed to the mainstream, even though that was only on a surface level of him proclaiming that, while underneath obviously a lot of the sounds of the 4 big studio albums that he had. I'm talking about Under Pressure, about The Incredible True Story, about Everybody, and then also Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. They very much appealed to a mainstream sound, very poppy, very popularized in the songwriting and the song structure and stuff like that. But we gotta commend him for still dropping stuff like YS4, which was definitely dope, and the Bobby Tarantino tapes too. So that was always his thing, doing what he wanted and not caring about the mainstream. And he even said this in the documentary about Vinyl Days. He dropped a little documentary, and he said that he just wanted this to be a straight up boom bap album, that he didn't want to close out his Def Jam contract with a pop album. He said he could have easily made one and made millions of dollars, but he chose to do this one to honor the label, but also to honor his own legacy on the label. So that's why Vinyl Days was this very boom bap album with not a lot of song structure, a lot of songs just being like one verse all the way throughout. And we hip-hop fans love that, but obviously it doesn't appeal to the mainstream as much. Now, what he's been doing recently, ever since the release of Vinyl Days back in June, on June 17th, is his latest effort, which was a beat tape. His first official beat tape, the first one that is at least available online to download, because he did do the Twitch tapes, the Twitch volumes, like a year or 2 ago, and I think you could download them, but they were something low-key. This, the first one, is called Peanuts, and you can download it on Bandcamp. It's also available on YouTube and everywhere you want to get it. It's free, so it's not out for commercial purposes, so this is definitely something he's just been doing in his own time and putting out for the fans. And I do like this. I think artists going their own way with these little projects that they're doing that are maybe not for commercial reasons or for popular reasons, but just something that they want to do with their own time and supply it to their own fans that they know are going to like it. I believe that is something beautiful, and I think a lot more artists should be doing stuff like that. And Logic has always been someone that did this, otherwise he wouldn't have gotten YS4. So that's his latest effort, and I'm going to speak on that a bit later as well. But also most recently is that he's been on tour with Wiz Khalifa, the Vinyl Verse Tour, which is a tour between the album Vinyl Days for Logic and the Multiverse album by Wiz Khalifa that dropped I think in July. The album was pretty okay. I think one of the most mature Wiz Khalifa albums. So that definitely helped him. That definitely helped at least get him somewhere in the spotlight again this tour. But I have a prediction. My prediction is that Logic will definitely disappear from the mainstream after this tour. Now is a couple of Instagram clips here and there with Wiz on the tour. But after this, he's mainly going to disappear from the mainstream. He's not going to have a major record label contract anymore. Vinyl Days, in my, view of it, only did somewhat well because it was his last album on Def Jam. This was the one that he wanted to close out this whole era of his career with. So a lot of fans were still tuning in, a lot of old fans. It didn't do extremely well. No big song on there. The majority of the songs only have about 1 million streams on Spotify. So the album is definitely not doing too well. And the only reason that it did do somewhat well, as I said, is because it had this big buzz around it of Logic dropping his last album on Def Jam. So that's kind of my prediction. He will definitely fall off and disappear from the mainstream mainly and kind of do these little side projects. But we'll get into that in a second. I do want to point out that the same thing seems to be happening with Wiz Khalifa, because his latest album, Multiverse, did even worse than Vinyl Days. The majority, like the main majority of this album, doesn't reach 1 million streams on there. It sits at around 500,000 streams after 1.5 months. So definitely not the level of success that Wiz is used to experiencing in his career, you know, dating back like 5 to 10 years. He did mainstream big numbers with like 2014 to 2018 big Wiz Khalifa era, obviously. So Wiz is also not doing too well, which is ironic because Logic is on tour with the same dude that is experiencing the same fate in his career as himself. But there's a difference that I see between Wiz Khalifa and Logic, and I think Wiz can also develop in that way. Logic, I think, is well off. Logic has his core fan base that he can supply these little one-on-one projects with. He says he has another like Dr. Destruction tape in the works, which the latest one we got, it might have been 2021 or 2020, I believe, which is just this character that he created, and he put out the mixtape for free on DatPiff. So this is something that the fans know he's gonna do, these little projects with some creative story to them. If it's gonna be music, if it's gonna be beats, he got movies and stuff like that coming, another book. So Logic is busy. Logic has these projects that he's supplying the fans with and can still also make money off of, even though I don't think he cares about that as much anymore, because, you know, if you got a big, you know, double-digit million Twitch deal, then you don't really care about your book selling that well. So that is what he's gonna do, you know, doing these little one-on-one projects. While someone like Wiz is gonna have a hard time doing that. He's still got his, you know, his couple of businesses that he's running, like Khalifa Kush, obviously. He put out the Full Court Press record with Big Crit a couple of months ago as well, which was amazing. So maybe he can tap into this lane of like doing these collaborative tapes with producers. That is always a very good way for a bit older, out of mainstream artists to still have a foot in the game and be somewhat in the conversation again. So I think Wiz can definitely develop in that way. And I'm not saying Wiz has fallen off. I mean, he has been. Logic as well. That is the unfortunate fate of them. Once you decide to just do what you want, you're gonna lose some mainstream appeal. But there's definitely a way for both of them to still have their own lane in their career. So that's what I think about this, about Logic's unfortunate fall off from the mainstream. But in a sense, he did it to himself. He wanted this. But yeah, let me know what you think about this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? How do you see this? Do you think Logic can have a mainstream comeback independently? What is he gonna do next? What's the next thing we're gonna hear from Logic and Wiz after their tour is done? All of your thoughts and theories on this, please let me know in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media, and most importantly, join my Discord in the description. Until the next one, you'll have an incredible day, and you'll take care.